Okay, this is just a video of me trying to explain the basics of like interior designing, essentially what like a floor plan does look like, and kind of how the people, especially architects and interior designers, actually do kind of design a room. I'm not the best at this, so you're gonna see very rough drafts, but kind of like the mathematics behind this too. An interior designer always starts off with, the apartment space itself. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to try my best to just draw as many lines as I can, and particularly just like a rectangle, symbolizing that this is a pretty small apartment. Obviously, if you have a small apartment like this, something might be going on, and you should probably get a bigger apartment. So the interior designer has something like this, right? It's pretty small apartments. But I'll give you like a quick rundown. Like, let's say that this is like, I don't know, like this random line that I drew is essentially like the door, right? I'm going to label this as the door. And because the interior designer has to mention what these different things are, right? This is the door. If I was continuing to do the design, I don't know, like right here is going to be like maybe like picture frame. I don't know, like a frame. There could be another frame here. It's a pretty small apartment, but this is just a rough draft. But let's say this is like the frames. If you want, like, let's just imagine this as like just a living room, kitchen, and all that stuff. So right here, maybe I can just draw like, this is like the bathroom. So I don't know how to draw a toilet, but just imagine this as a toilet. So that's the toilet. Maybe what we can have is like a sink right here. So that's going to be my sink. And notice how I'm always labeling. An interior designer always labels their work just because it does help clarify these different things. I don't know how to draw a shower, but let's just say that's our shower. Maybe right next to it, this is like my bedroom. Yes, my bedroom is going to be pretty small, but let's just say this is my bedroom right here. And notice that I just deleted my frames. Why did I do that? Notice that I just labeled this as my room. If I put a picture frame the same size as my room, that means the picture frame is the exact same size as my room. That doesn't make sense. So that's why you always have to do things to scale. What does it mean, things to scale? To scale means doing it in approximate measurements. So relative measurements. So if I have a picture frame, it doesn't make sense for me to have a picture frame that's about the same size as my room. No, it's going to be like part of the room. So that's why I drew it in a smaller way, such as this example right here. So that's like my room. And then let's just imagine like, this is my table. So I'm going to label table. This is probably my bed. So bed, I'll draw like little things here, bed. And then some random things like, if you really want to explain what the door is probably like here. And the reason why you draw diagonals is because it just indicates that it opens that way. So this is like a door, that's another door. And then let's just assume you keep on going. So if you just had, maybe this is like your living room. So maybe this part of your area, it doesn't have to be an actual square, but I'm just indicating that this is probably the living room. And then this is like my kitchen. So I don't know, like the kitchen. I'm not really good at designing a kitchen. That's why I'm really bad at doing this design. But let's just say that this is like my kitchen. Maybe if I come in, like this is my dining table, right? So I'll just write dining table. Dining table. And then I have like little chairs here. So these are my chairs. I would label it. So I'm gonna label it. So right here are chairs. And then right here to right here are all chairs. These are all the steps that an interior designer creates. And this is a pretty small apartment. I'm not going to lie. If you do something like this, I would be pretty confused as to why you would have a blank living room, because I don't know what the living room would have. Maybe I'll have a TV right here. I don't know. Something like that. This is an example of the interior design and labeling. Now, in terms of the actual measurements, the math can get difficult. But essentially, I gave you guys this as a tip. 2 squares equals to 100 centimeters. Or it's the same as saying, instead of 100 centimeters, 100 centimeters is actually 1 meter. 1 meter is a pretty common thing when it comes to interior designing. So if I look here, I have here the length of my room being 1 square. If it's 1 square, it's going to be half of what it is. So instead of saying 1 square, half of a meter is just 1/2 of a meter. Which is the same as saying 50 centimeters. Now, if you actually look at 50 centimeters, that's essentially just grabbing almost like a 12-inch ruler and you add a little bit. So you know that this room is definitely way too small. Think about that. A whole bathroom can barely fit you. Width-wise, it doesn't make sense. So this right here is 1 square, which is the same as saying 50 centimeters. That barely is even a foot. Or it's beyond a foot, but it's pretty small. This is why when I want you to design and measure, that I want you to be accurate. So that's why everything should be to scale. So this example right here is actually a bad example. So this is actually a bad example because the rooms are too small. Which makes sense. If you actually looked up what 50 centimeters are, it's essentially like I think, I believe 50 centimeters might be to your knee level. So that's 50 centimeters as a relative measurement is like from your foot to your knee. It's pretty small. Like that can barely fit me width-wise, right? So because it's 50 centimeters, I knew that my drawing was too small. So then maybe one thing you're like, well, if I already drew it, what's something that I can do? Well, one thing that you can do if it's small is that you can just try to resize it so that it can be bigger. So let's say I copied it, I went to another page and I pasted it. Maybe what I can do is I can say, okay, maybe instead of doing it this, I can just do it a tiny bit more. And then things start making sense, right? So if I extend it just a tiny little bit, I think it won't let me go bigger. But anyways, let's just say if I went a little bit bigger, like if I only took this. So if I only took this and I increased it, something like this, then yeah, it starts getting a little bit more realistic, right? Now it's 4 squares. Now like the room gets a little bit more. And even though it's not really 1 square anymore, because if you looked at this example, this is beyond 1 square. This is like maybe 1 1/2 squares. I don't know. That's going to be 150 centimeters, which is okay. That's actually bigger than you think. Well, I think in class, I'll show you examples of what these measurements are. But the goal of this project is for you to mention, hey, is your design actually making sense? Is this too small? Is your designs too small? Is your living room bigger than your actual room? If so, there might be something different about that, unless you want that as your obvious choice. The last thing in the project that I want you to do is just mention the purchases. So obviously, as you're doing this, you have a table. So the table did look like this. So you're just asking yourself, what should you include? So example is like, oh, I had a dining table. How much does a dining table cost? How much does the chairs cost? So the chairs don't cost a lot, so I just put $1 sign. Of course, you have to obviously put the numbers, but something like that. You have to do a bed. How much would that cost? And all these different like interior decorating does require a lot of money, which is why an apartment is really expensive. Most apartments are usually around $1,000 per month. That's basically all there is. If you do have any questions, you can always email me or you can just directly ask me. It's right there. But yeah, that's basically for this project. It looks like a lot. I trust you that it's actually not that bad. I know that this looks complicated, especially with the measurements, but if you have any questions, let me know.